We're going to go ahead and start with our small fry showman today. Exhibitors in this class are Bowman Brazel, Hayden Lawson, Tyler Monks, and Elise Brown. Or Elsie Brown, I'm so sorry. Our judge this evening for the Lamb Market Show is Ben Williams. Ben Williams is from Lyons, Kansas, where he owns and operates Diamond W Club Lambs with his family. He's coached livestock judging teams for 10 years at Hutchinson Community College and currently serves as an ag instructor and livestock operations coordinator. He has 2 boys that enjoy showing sheep, goats, and pigs. If we could please get a round of applause for our judge. I'd just like to take a minute to thank our premier sponsors, Mavericks Broadband, Core Electric Cooperative, as well as 40 Mile Feed for providing our shavings for the show ring, and Zebra Lighting Productions for providing our lighting. Our gold sponsors include Farmer State Bank, Wagner Cat, Serenity at Wolf Creek Ranch, GMT Exploration Company, and Excel Energy. Our silver sponsors for this evening, 21st Century, Independence, Craft Companies, Prestito Brothers Equipment, Mountain View Electric Association, and Cypress Creek Renewables.
Another good way to start as we get into our market lambs, and we've got 4 young people that are coming out and showing and getting some ring experience and having some fun, and this is kind of really where the groundwork starts to just create a positive experience for these young kids and hopefully see them back here in a couple of years. Let's show them a big congratulations and appreciation, and good job, kids. They get a blow pop and a sucker, and they'll be happy here for the rest of the night. So good job, and hope to see you back here in a year or two.
Entering the ring now is our senior sheep showmanship. There are 9 entries in this class, exhibitors being Carly Bringhurst, Mackenzie Hayes, Addison McWhorter, Troy McWhorter, Lita No, Wes Snow, Caden Pfeiffer, Amelia Prouse, Mateo Robles Zion, and Carissa Stone.
think we've got a really nice group here as we get into our older showmen here on the market lamb side of things, and we've got a big group, and I think some young people here that are doing a nice job and are working with these animals well, and I've got some differences here that I'll try to describe to you that I see in the young people that I just happen to prefer. We've got some that end up getting placed sixth on down the line, and really a lot of it I think is how we position our bodies, how we're using our hands to hold the heads and trying to get a brace. We've got too many of them that have their necks that are going out versus up, and that just looks like the animal's pulling back and probably just isn't the best look of the animal. We can probably also work on a little bit in terms of just kind of with all of the leg wool that a lot of these sheep have, just continue to work on your presentation of getting that blended in and looking appropriately. I know it is showmanship, but also part of showmanship is making your animal look its very best. And so trying to get some of that blended in like it's been groomed and combed, I think also helps the animal look a little bit better for a show. And so that's just a little thing that I see in some of these here that we want to continue to work on, trying to blend the leg wool in, make it look show ready, make it kind of look appropriate when you kind of get them out here in the show ring setting. So those are just a few general comments just for the entire group. As I break down differences in terms of showmen, I do have them lined up 1 through 5. The young lady on my far right is going to be your champion showman in this particular group, and what I really like about her is the way that she kind of navigates the head and the front end of this particular wether, and how she just kind of holds her hands and kind of keeps his nose level but still kind of has his ears up, but it's still a natural look and posture about that particular sheep. I think that's a big heavyweight sheep. I don't know what he weighs, but she handles him fairly well. I think one that takes the time to set feet. Does he stand there perfectly for her all of the time? Probably not, but I think she continues to work on setting feet, and then just the front end, I think, for me, is kind of what separates her to go ahead and win this particular drive. The young lady that ends up in second in motion, this young lady probably does as good a job as anybody of getting this sheep to lead out and getting him to look his best in motion, and I like that about her. When I step in and handle, and it seems like every time that sheep just moves on her. He just moves every time I come in and handle. I want to see him just stand a little bit more consistently for her, and she kind of has a little bit of a different grip right there on the back of that sheep's head when she's got him braced and set up, which is okay. The biggest thing, I just want to see him stand for her a little bit more. She does work to set the feet, though, and I do appreciate that. Sometimes I think young people get criticized because it looks like they're always working and are always moving. Once in a while, we maybe overdo it, but she's working to try to get feet set, and I like that. She knows what she wants to do, where she wants to put the feet, and although he doesn't stand quite as good for her, I know that she knows where she wants those to go. The young man here in the orange, has a different approach, and he's one that you don't really see him move just a whole lot, and I like that kind of demeanor about him. But he is one that doesn't reach down to set feet with his hands. He kind of does it with his knee just a little bit, and he'll get them close, and then he'll let them stand. I want to see you, as you compete towards the top end, get them absolutely perfect. If you can get them perfect and set them with a hand like those front legs the way they are right now, right, instead of just trying to bump them and hopefully he gets them set down right, I want to see you use your hands to set them where you want them to. If you're able to do that, if the sheep will let you do that, I think you'll be able to get them set, and then you can kind of combine that with the ability to get that sheep to stand there consistently and stand well. That sheep stands as good for him as any of them in the class. Just like to see him use his hands to get him exactly where he wants to go. Young lady in the pink is one of the more intense showmen in this particular group, and I like that competitive mindset and competitive look about her. She does a good job of getting the back leg square. She does get that sheep kind of stretched out, and once in a while it's a little bit too much. She's so tall that I think it's a challenge, right, to still kind of have just a natural posture about your body and your shoulders. Once in a while we get a little too hunched over on that particular sheep. I don't know if you have a bigger one that you can bring into showmanship at some time where you can be just a little bit more natural in your stance and your shoulders. You got a different style about you. It's not bad. It's more intense. But I think in relation to your height, right, just staying a little bit more natural looking may help just the smoothness and just the appearance of her in this particular lineup, but an excellent job as well. Young lady that rounds out about my top 5, very similar to the young gal right in front. Still does a nice job of getting the sheep stretched out and handled. Want to see you maybe just handle the head and the ears just a little bit different for my personal likings. Keep your knee on this side, on this shoulder of the sheep. We want to cover that up and try to get just a brace on that one. Maybe blend the legs in on that guy just a little bit too. Competitive group here. Again, give them a nice round of applause. Congratulate these young kids.
Your 2023 Grand Champion Senior Showman is Carly Bringhurst. Your Reserve Champion Senior Showman is Addison McWhorter. In third place, Troy McWhorter. Fourth place, Mackenzie Hayes. And fifth place, Lita No. Entering the ring now is the Intermediate Sheep Showmanship class. There are 11 exhibitors in this class. The exhibitors are Logan Clare, Frankie Hayes, Jeffrey Lawson Jr., Sadie McWhorter, Cody Monks, Peyton Monks, Tyson Post, Jack Pyatt, Jamie Schaefer, Bernice Summers, Jacene Zion, and Quinn Whale.
Got a really competitive group again in this particular age division, and 5 young ladies here that sort their way to the top, and some still very competitive showmen on down the line. Again, I think it's just some details in terms of our body placement, our hand placement, trying to get the feet set up appropriately. And it's okay when an animal moves. It's okay to reach down and set a leg and get it put back in place, even if the judge is looking. I think, I'm looking to see if you're going to move a leg, if you're going to set it back to where it belongs, or just kind of leave it. And I think most will tell you, whatever you need to do to get the sheep to look its very best, that's what we want you to do. And I think just kind of learning a few of those little details may help you as you continue to show and continue to learn. Young lady over here on my far right, I felt like by far just the most consistent job from start to finish in this particular heat. Very smooth. I think one that's attentive to feet and still gets an appropriate brace on her animal. Like the way she handles herself there towards the front end and her hand and the ears and the nose on that particular sheep when she gets him out and leads that one and gets him to go. I think just does a very appropriate job with her pace, still uses the ring well. Is intense but not over the top, and I think just a very, very good job from start to finish. Very few criticisms that I would have of her in this particular showmanship drive. Congratulations to her. I thought she did an awfully good job. I think from there on out, it got pretty competitive and pretty close here between our next several spots. The young lady here kind of in the green, another nice job in terms of body position and up towards the front end of this particular animal. Maybe one that just doesn't drive quite as hard as what our winner did when I put my hands on that one, but a nice job in terms of handling that one and getting her body out in front and still paying attention to feet. I thought that it did a very good job in that regard too. Another competitive young lady. The one that ends up in third, very similar story, I think. This is one that sheep wants to get her front legs camped out underneath of her just a little bit more, and so she has to continue to work to keep her stretched out a little bit towards her front end to where those front feet are right and where she can keep the front posture of that particular animal appropriate. And so she has to work just a little bit harder than the other two to get that one to stand and look the part there from the side, but another competitive young lady there that's doing a good job. One that ends up in this 4th spot is a young lady that's, in terms of her demeanor and her smoothness, probably mirrors that of the one who ends up winning this particular drive. I like those things about her. When I come in and get a handle on that one, she does a good job of getting a brace on that particular sheep. Once in a while he'll get those front legs just a little bit wide on her from time to time, but that's not that big of a fault. I think that the thing probably that hurts her a little bit, in my opinion, is maybe just the use of a halter in a showmanship class when others are leading them out by their hands. Unless there's something unique about that in a showmanship class, I would encourage you to try to show him without the halter if you're able to. If you feel like you need it and come back during the show and need to use it during the show, I'm probably okay with that. But I think in this particular drive, and in my opinion, I guess, I would try to lead that sheep with your hands and not use the halter if you're able to, but a nice job and a competitive showman. The one that ends up in 5th, just like for you to slow down just a little bit in your approach out here in this particular class, and we kind of get over there and kind of down into the corner, and we get just maybe a little bit out of place. So just slow down, take a breath, just approach showing that one just a little bit calmer, and maybe he'll act for you just a little bit better as well. But I like her intensity again. Very competitive group here. Go ahead and show them some appreciation for me. Nice job.
Your 2023 Grand Champion Intermediate Sheep Showman is Cody Monks. Your Reserve Grand Champion is Peyton Monks. In 3rd place, Sadie McWhorter. 4th place, Bernice Summers. And 5th place, Jamie Schaefer. Entering the ring now are our junior showmen. There are 6 entries in this class. Exhibitors in this class are Avery Clare, Kinley Cornell, Michael Lawson, Amelia Summers, Harlan Summers, and Colby Zion.
really impressive and competitive group again as we get into our junior kids, I believe, and really the top end, the top three here, I felt like were very competitive young people and young showmen, all three of them doing a really good job. I hate to put one of them third. I just feel like all three of them, probably deserve a shot at one of those top two spots. But ultimately, that's part of kind of my job, and so we'll get them lined up here, and I'll tell you kind of what I see. Young lady in the green, I felt like just from kind of the get-go, kind of had control of that ewe-lamb, intense in terms of her look. I like just her approach to getting that one shown and braced and set up. Felt did a nice job when she was out there on the lead of still getting her to go at a good pace, but still had some control of that particular sheep. I felt like probably just a little bit quicker maybe to get that one set than the young man from time to time. Right there towards the end, the young man had to work a little bit longer, wasn't quite as quick to get that one's feet set just exactly where he wanted, and then continued to work on pulling the front end a little bit there. And so I think just the difference between those two is probably towards the end of this particular drive. I felt like the young man wasn't able to get him set up just quite as quickly. When he does, though, I like the way that he gets out in front of that sheep and handles that sheep, does a nice job of getting a brace on that sheep as well. I think a quality job to him, maybe just a little bit quicker on getting feet and legs set, but an outstanding job to both of them. The young lady here in third, I would say right now is probably the best that you've done in this particular showmanship drive. Like, we got him set up exactly how you need to right now. And so I think earlier in this particular drive, took you a little bit longer to try to get there. He kind of wanted to duck down on you from time to time, but you've got him set up well right now. I just want to see that a little bit more consistent all the way through this particular class, but you're a good showman and you're doing a good job too. Young lady here with the pink shirt that has a sheep that she's able to try to get corralled here, and we kind of get into fourth, fifth, and sixth, and really all three of you just trying to get your bodies in front, trying to get some brace on these sheep a little bit. As you continue to grow and mature and able to show some of these without a halter, I'd encourage you to try that. My personal preference, I know that some kids like showing with halters. I think it's a little bit, if you're able to do it without, it's a leg up. As you continue to grow and mature, I think try to do it if you're able to. I know you don't want them to get away, and I certainly get that, but just kind of think about that here as you continue on. Doing a good job. Go ahead and give them a nice round of applause here. Let's congratulate these young kids.
Your 2023 Grand Champion Junior Sheep Showman is Kinley Cornell. Your reserve champion showman is Harlan Summers. In third place, Amelia Summers. Fourth place, Avery Clare. And fifth place, Michael Lawson. Entering the class now is our prospect class. This is a class of a lamb weighing 96 pounds, shown by Wes Nell.
Young man brings us a ewe lamb here, single entry, kind of 96 pounds. And I think one that obviously as we kind of think about some of the lighter weight classes and those prospect kind of classes, she kind of fits the same mold, just a little skinnier, a little greener yet, isn't quite there in terms of being market ready. He's got one that's good in terms of her structure. The angles of that sheep from a skeleton standpoint are nice. I think her balance and her build is okay. We want to see that one just be a little bit more mature for the show today, continue to grow and put on some weight and dimension, and that'll just help that sheep on down the road. Congratulations there to him.
Entering the ring now is Class 1 of our market lambs. These lambs weigh from 108 pounds to 114 pounds. Exhibitors in this class are Tyson Post, Mackenzie Hayes, Lita No, and Bernice Summers. And just as a reminder, if you have family that cannot make it tonight, make sure to tell them that they can go ahead and watch the show live streamed on showbarnflix.com.
I think a nice way to get started in the market portion of the show. The young lady has no doubt the class winner for me in this particular group, one that's really, really cool. I like this sheep in terms of what he represents. I like his build, and I like kind of thinking about where he could be later on down the line, maybe as she continues to show this one. Get your hands on him really, really big in terms of his rack shape. He's got a square edge there to his loin, a lot of muscle and still pretty lean, and I think just looks still pretty immature and still pretty youthful as you study him in relation to just kind of his weight. Just a sheep that's got a lot of future. He's pretty cool. If I'm going to change him, maybe just lay the angle of his blade back ever so slightly, and as he continues to mature, maybe pull his flank line down just a little bit. But that'd be a fun sheep to feed, and I like him not only today, but I think that'll be a cool one there on down the road. We get into second and third and fourth and fifth in this class, and I think we get into some sheep that have some of the basic parts that are certainly okay. The young young man that ends up in the second spot is a solid sheep, one that still has some spread there to his rack. He's got just some general dimension, maybe just not quite the same league there as that particular class winner. The one that ends up in third in terms of expression of muscle and shape, he's good in that regard. He's tall there at the top of his shoulder. I like those things about him. He wants to get pretty raw yet in terms of how his loin hooks into his jump muscle right there at his hip. Like to see that guy just blend a little smoother, a little shorter hip, just a little rounder set there to his hind leg. I think the biggest thing on him is just giving him a little more maturity to allow him to just smoothen up a little bit. If he's able to do that, he probably moves up a spot here in this particular class. We get into the sheep that lands in the fourth spot here, one that in relation to the sheep in 5 has a little bit more spread right there to his loin. He's a little bolder in terms of his body. In relation to those above him, he wants to get a little deep though in his chest. He wants to drop his hip and kind of camp his hind leg out underneath of him on the move. I'd like to see that corrected to maybe make a play to move up any higher. Level spine, long-bodied sheep here that ends up in 5th. Just too flat. He just needs more muscle. Nice class here as we get going. Congratulations.
Results from Class 1. In first place, Bernice Summers. Second place, Tyson Post. Third place, Lita No. Fourth place, Mackenzie Hayes. And fifth place, Mackenzie Hayes. Entering the ring now is Class 2 Market Lambs. Exhibitors in this class are Peyton Monks, Troy McWhorter, Peyton Monks, Amelia Summers, and Tyson Post. Lambs in this class range from 119 pounds to 124 pounds.
certainly a deeper class, I think, maybe than the one we just previously judged. And still, we've got a couple of them that kind of vie for those, second and third spots in this particular class. I still think, though, the one that wins and does so fairly handily, it comes in a different mold, maybe, than the sheep that we used from the last class. But I still think kind of an indicator that quality can come in just different types and different kinds. And this is, in my opinion, the best sheep in this particular class. I like how this one just proportions really good in terms of his center body shape and just his flank. I think one, it isn't the longest and the tallest, but things still blend and fit together nice on that one. And then you step in behind, and that sheep just overpowers everything else in this particular lineup in terms of his width and spread up high. Really big pin set, a lot of stifle shape, and I think he still handles it pretty well when you watch him in motion. His spine still stays correct, and I think sometimes that's a challenge and a hard thing to do. Is he just the most elevated right up there in his front end? Maybe not, but I think he's certainly acceptable there and just the highest quality sheep to go ahead and lead the way. One that ends up in second is taller fronted. I like this sheep in terms of just his leanness and his touch. He's got some shape and turn there, to his hip and his leg. From the side, if I'm going to criticize him, he wants to wash out in his loin edge a little bit too much for me. Maybe like to pull his flank line in him down just a little bit as well. And I think you can see every once in a while he just looks a little rounder in the way that he's made right there in his hip and the set to his hind leg. Like to modify that on him ever so slightly. One that comes in third is a sheep here that handles well. He's got a good touch. Young man's done a good job of getting him ready here for the show today. I think just a really nice shape and a nice touch, a good loin edge on him. He's one for me that as I read him, kind of out here from the side and you kind of watch him get out and go. He wants to get a little bit longer in the shape of his shoulder, a little deeper there in the floor of his chest. A sheep that I just want to see a little more elevated right there up front and give me a bit more of an attractive look to go with some of the muscle that he has. A really hard muscled, big racked one here that's really terminal in terms of his look. A sheep, though, that just needs to balance better for me. He wants to get a little too up there in his flank. We want to modify just his angles a little bit. You study his shoulder shape. You study his hip and his hind leg structure. Want to tweak on him just a little bit to go with all of his shape and just kind of that muscle that he has to make him just proportion a little nicer. In a nice fifth place sheep, really, for the young man. He gets in a tougher class, honestly. I think he's got a solid sheep here, really. One that just gets a little bit plainer, though, in terms of his look and his touch. Not quite as hard and lean and firm when I get my hands on him, but he's bold-bodied, he's wide, he's opened up. A solid sheep for that young man to land in a tough class. Go ahead and put your hands together for these kids. Congratulate them on their hard work.
Results from Class 2. In first place, Amelia Summers. Second place, Peyton Monks. Third place, Troy McWhorter. Fourth place, Peyton Monks. And fifth place, Tyson Post. Entering the ring now is Class 3. These lambs weigh from 129 pounds to 131 pounds. Exhibitors in this class are Harlan Summers, Jamie Schaefer, Sadie McWhorter, Amelia Prouse, Cody Monks, Jeffrey Lawson, and Frankie Hayes.
our third class here, we get into a couple of weathers here that I think both have some similarities in terms of just muscularity and shape, and just kind of chock full of muscle. I like that about both of them. The one that wins, though, in relation to the sheep that ends up in second, I think just handles himself a little bit better, specifically right there at the base of his chest. I think that sheep's tucked up just a little bit neater and nicer in that regard. Just kind of appears to have a little smoother hide, just a little better touch in that regard, and probably just a little bit longer as you study that guy right there out of his hip and kind of from his last rib back. Both of these sheep, though, I think are cut a little bit more from the same mold in terms of just being muscle and power sheep. In relation to, kind of just an elite looking one from the side. We talked about the class winner's advantages over the one that ends up in second. We could still probably try to keep that top line down on him just a little bit more, but I think a really solid sheep to go ahead and lead the way. In terms of handle and rack shape and loin edge squareness, I like the sheep that ends up in second. Probably like just maybe his stoutness of feature a little bit better than the class winner. As I study his rear leg, I guess the biggest thing on him is just kind of that front end a little bit. When that young man backs off of that sheep, when you see him kind of get out and move, want to pull the neck out of the top of his shoulder just a little bit and clean him up right there in his breastbone to make a case for that sheep to move up any higher. The one that ends up here in this third spot, the young lady's got a ewe lamb that's got some neat parts. Really about her in terms of just rib cage shape. That sheep has a really kind of cool build to her rib design. I think one in terms of still having just some general mass and muscularity, she's good. I think a sheep that still balances in proportions okay. I think the biggest thing on that one is just she gets too soft when I get my hands on her. Like to lean that one up, see that one just handle with more tone and a little more firmness, and just see that one simply just a little bit more athletic there on the handle. But a quality sheep, though, that comes out and competes in this class. The one that ends up in fourth, good hided sheep. I like that about her. Really long in terms of her top line and level. Still one that spans with some shape to her rack. I think you can see as you study her down low in relation to her length of body, she just gets entirely too shallow and a little tubular in terms of her look. I'd like to pull her body and her flank line down to allow things to just proportion and match and balance better for that sheep from the outside, but one that still has some nice parts. The blue sheep here that ends up in the fifth spot, I think is another one here that's still pretty lean to the touch. I'd like to see this one just be better built in the way that he's made off of either end of his skeleton, handle his hip and hind leg just a little sounder to be more competitive. Good class here as we get into our lightweight division. Congratulations. Go ahead and put your hands together for them.
Results from Class 3. In first place, Cody Monks. Second place, Harlan Summers. Third place, Jamie Schaefer. Fourth place, Sadie McWhorter. And fifth place, Amelia Prouse. Entering the ring now, we have our champion lightweight Market Lamb Drive. Exhibitors in this class include Bernice Summers, Tyson Post, Amelia Summers, Peyton Monks, Cody Monks, and Harlan Summers. Our champion lightweight Market Lamb Award is sponsored by Tammy Schneider with TSS Real Estate.
we're calling this our lightweight division, and we'll kind of work through 3 divisions: light, medium, and heavy. If the sheep are this good in our medium and our heavyweights, our final drive is going to be pretty fun. I really like the quality that we're able to present and find here coming out of our first 3 classes. I think they're just a little bit different. They're kind of weighing in the 119, 120, 130 kind of range, if you're curious. But in terms of just general type and kind, we've got some quality sheep, but we certainly have some differences, in my opinion, in terms of how they're built and made. The one that comes out of our first class, and I'll just kind of tell you a few of the differences that I see. The one that comes out of the first class, he's the most different one out here in terms of just his elevation, his look, his build, just that kind of look about him of a sheep that is good today, but he'll continue to get better. I think the more days that he is really on feed, that's the kind of sheep that personally I like feeding myself. I think one that just offers some really unique parts out here in this lineup as we study his differences compared to the other 2. They're really up front. That guy's a little bit more up and out, one that really handles square and fresh, and I think one that just kind of has a cool build as you study him, the way that he's made in his hip as well. The question, I guess, is there enough of him? Is he mature enough, particularly today for this setting? And I guess we'll make that decision here in just a minute, but in terms of just quality, I like that sheep. The one that comes out of our second class, there's only a pound difference between them, but they're built quite a bit different, right? And so a little bit shorter, a little more compact. This guy is just a really square, I think is the best term that describes him. Very square built, especially in his rump and the way that he sets down out of his hock. I like those things about him in a sheep that, again, kind of like the one that comes out of our first class, handles really well. All 3 of them handle well in a sheep that comes to us in a form that's a little more moderate in the way that he's made and put together. Is he maybe quite as just neat and attractive right up through his front end as the sheep that comes out of the first class? Probably not. Does he appear to be a little farther along and have a little more flank maybe than the sheep that comes out of the first class? Probably, but 2 different styles, but 2 good sheep that come out of those 2 classes. The one that comes out of our third class, 130 pounds, just in terms of handle and shape and muscle, this sheep does a lot of things good from that regard. Good heighted as well. I like those things about him. You study him out here in this lineup, wants to work up in his top just a little bit. I'd like to modify that guy, and he's pretty full too, and so maybe a little less fill may help his top line just kind of level out. Is he just quite as big in his rear leg and quite as attractive in the set to his hind leg as those first 2? Maybe not, but a quality sheep there that really has a lot of handling quality and a lot of market fundamentals, if you will, in terms of muscularity and freshness and touch. And so I'm excited about this lightweight drive. I don't know how the rest of the evening's going to go, but I'll tell you, the ones that come out of here I think are going to be pretty competitive on down the road later tonight as we get everything back out. So I'm going to take one more look. Go ahead and put your hands together for the 3 young ladies and the 3 young people on the far side. We'll get you a champion in reserve lightweight.
Your champion in the lightweight division is Bernice Summers. Your reserve champion in the lightweight division is Amelia Summers. Entering the ring now are Class 4 market lambs. Lambs in this class range from 132 pounds to 135 pounds. Exhibitors in this class are Quinn Whale, Matea Robles Zion, Avery Clare, Colby Zion, and Amelia Summers.
We got a nice place to start in this class. The young lady has the class winner that does so fairly handily. I think the strengths of this sheep are really right here from the side, and especially the front two-thirds of him. I think one that runs uphill. He's assembled well in terms of the angle of his shoulder. His chest floor is laid in him nicely. I think one just in terms of his balance and his look and his build, you can appreciate that guy from a distance. Get right up on top of him, and in terms of just his rack shape and his loin edge, I think he's certainly more than adequate there and is very fresh to the touch. If I'm going to change that sheep a little bit, as I step in right behind on him, maybe like to expand those pins just a little bit on that guy and maybe just power him up ever so slightly right there from behind. But a good look, good build on him, still fresh to the touch. Nice place to start. From there, I think there's some variety in this class and maybe can go a few different ways, but the young man ends up with a good basic built sheep here that ends up in the second spot, one that has some real rib and some body and some general muscle. Maybe like to see him just more attractive and be a little better in terms of his balance in order to make a case to start to think about moving up any higher in this particular lineup, but just a solid weather there that ends up in the second spot. Young man's got one in third here who's really tall-shouldered. He's long-bodied. I think one that handles still very lean. In relation to those traits, I'd like to see a little bit more rib shape, a little more depth of body. Get my hands on that guy's loin edge. He wants to just play out a little bit. I'd like to freshen him up a little bit as well, but certainly a tall, long, lean one there that ends up in the third spot. The young lady's more Suffolk appearing sheep that ends up in fourth, kind of similar build and mold, if you will. I think one that still is ample in terms of muscularity, a sheep that is just a little bit slicker in terms of, just presentation and legs, and not just quite as stout as you study that one down low, but a solid Suffolk appearing sheep there that ends up in the fourth spot. In the fifth hole, we've got one that probably offers more depth of rib and depth of flank than the one that ends up in fourth, but just runs out of muscle. We want to see just a little more shape and true power in that one as I step in from behind, stouting that one up at the ground as well. Congratulations again for a job well done.
Results from Class 4. In first place, Amelia Summers. Second place, Quinn Will. Third place, Colby Zion. Fourth place, Avery Clare. And fifth place, Mateo Robles Zion. Coming into the ring now is Class 5. Lambs in this class range from 137 to 138 pounds. Exhibitors in this class include Logan Clare, Mateo Robles Zion, Cora Lave, Jamie Schaefer, Jack Pyatt, and Addison McWhorter.
Got a couple sheep here towards the top end that worked their way up, and the young lady did a really nice job of getting this particular class winner presented and ready to show. I think one that just kind of looks the part when he comes in the ring. I like this one in terms of just his skeleton. He gets out and he's flexible and he moves well. I think he looks very similar, how he is set up there when he's braced to what he looks like out and in motion. And that's kind of an indicator that skeleton is pretty good. I think one in relation to just his muscularity, he's certainly more than adequate in that regard. One that just looks very smooth out here from the side. If I'm going to tweak on him just a little bit, maybe lean that guy up a little bit right there over his forerib. Is he maybe just the shallowest chested one that we've seen today? Maybe not, but things still fit together. He's smooth. He looks the part. Looks like a show sheep. Is going to be the one that leads this particular class off. The one that ends up in the second spot is really kind of a bright white one. Kind of comes out here. They've done a good job of taking care of that one in terms of just hide and skin, and does a good job in that regard. I think another one from a muscle standpoint really has some distinct advantages in comparison to the ones that end up down the line. In relation to the one that wins the class, though, I didn't read this one to be just quite as proportionate. I didn't read that one to be quite as just stout at the ground, and maybe just didn't get the same kind of consistent looks on him as what we did as the class winner. But a pretty solid sheep there to end up in the second spot. Really muscular, really big top, pretty square built. I like a lot of things about him. The one that ends up in this third spot, the young man's got one that just in terms of levelness and squareness of hip and still having some shape of rib, does a good job with this particular animal. Kind of runs out of gas a little bit when I step in from behind, wants to play out, wants to get a little flatter there at the base of this one's leg and stifle. Like to just maybe shape this one up a little bit more, but a pretty solid sheep there to end up in third. Muscular sheep here that ends up in fourth. Like to see this one be balanced a little bit nicer. He wants to get too low fronted. He wants to hook his hind leg underneath of him. I'd like to just modify him a little bit in terms of his build and his hind leg, but a muscular sheep. Then we round out our top five with a sheep here that's long-bodied and level, just a little bit softer when I put my hands on that one. Not as fresh, not as firm and lean to the touch as what I'm after. Like to see that one just a little bit leaner, a little more athletic, but he's made well from the side. Congratulations here to this particular class. Let's show these kids some appreciation for me.
Results from Class 5. First place, Addison McWhorter. Second place, Jamie Schaefer. Third place, Jack Pyatt. Fourth place, Mateo Robles Zion. And fifth place, Cora Lave. Entering the ring now is Class 6. Lambs in this class range from 141 to 146 pounds. Exhibitors in this class are Quinn Whale, Bernice Summers, Avery Clare, Addison McWhorter, Kinley Cornell, Carissa Stone, and Sadie McWhorter.
A lot of variety in this particular class, and I think they come in about every different shape and size in this particular lineup, and so I think that makes it a little bit challenging to get everything to try to look similar or try to get them matched up, and I think that might be impossible in this particular lineup. But the young lady has one here that really from his shoulder back, this guy is just a truck. He is so stout and so opened up. You put your hands on him, this guy spans a great big old back and a great big loin, and really impressive there, not only to the touch but also from behind. Muscle is obviously not an issue with this particular sheep. In relation to how much just power and mass that he has, I think in terms of his flexibility, he still handles that pretty well. If I'm going to criticize him, he's just wanting to look a little bit mature for me right up there through his front end. He's a little bit shorter, he's a little thicker right there about his neck. He's wanting to push down just a little bit more on the floor of his chest, and so that's why when I open my comments with the shoulder back, I think the back 2/3 of that one are very impressive. I'd like to change the way that he's made just a little bit there through his front end, but I felt like that was still the place to start. The tricky part here is as we kind of work down into the second, third, and fourth spots in this class. The one that ends up in second, I like just from the standpoint of still being big and square in his loin. He's level hipped, he's square built right there. Done a nice job of getting him presented. I think one that still offers probably a little more length and certainly a little more elevation than that class winner. As I study him though, as I get that front 3/4 or rear 3/4 view, I read that guy's rib cage to be just built a little bit flatter into him. I don't think he's quite as robust and opened up there in terms of his center body, and he too probably is pushing just a little bit down low on the floor of his chest, and then just doesn't come with the same kind of just mass and muscle as the class winner, but a solid sheep there to end up in second. We kind of moderate ourselves and go back down in size for the young lady's ewe lamb that ends up in this third spot. Another one in terms of rib cage and just top side width and rack shape. She's very good in that regard. She does want to get just a little bit round in the way that she's built right there out of her hip and the set of her hind leg. Maybe lean her up just a little bit too, but another muscular moderate sheep there that ends up in the third spot. We go back to the other end of the spectrum here for the sheep that ends up in fourth, tall and long. Definitely a different type and kind compared to the one that stands right in front of her. Like to see this guy just boulder ribbed, like to pull his flank line down. He just gets a little bit too flat in the way that he's made all the way throughout for me in this particular class. The young man has a muscular sheep here that ends up in the fifth spot. Get your hands on him. He handles good. He's big topped. He's got a nice shape to his stifle and to him really from the side view. I think one that we just want to fix a little bit in terms of his balance. He gets a little too low chested, a little frail at the ground. I'd like to see that guy built just a little bit better to be more competitive. But a nice class, an interesting class, lots of differences here. Regardless, go ahead and congratulate the kids here for working hard.
Results from Class 6. First place, Bernice Summers. Second place, Sadie McWhorter. Third place, Kinley Cornell. Fourth place, Addison McWhorter. And fifth place, Quentin Wheel. Coming into the ring is Class 7. Exhibitors Amelia Prowse, Jacene Zion, Harlan Summers, Troy McWhorter, and Cora Lave. The lambs weigh from 149 pounds to 153.
young man here in the blue shirt's got the sheep that wins this class, and just kind of one that looks like a show steer out here, really, in terms of just his stoutness, his squareness, and his power. This guy's chocked full of as much muscle as what you really would want in one, and I think he still handles it pretty well in terms of his skeleton. I think as you step back and study that guy in relation to how much muscle he has in terms of proportionality, he proportions well. If we're going to criticize him a little bit, you probably like to see that guy maybe just a little bit less shoulder. He just looks a little bit rounder in the way that he's made, a little thicker neck right up there through his front end. But when you have that much power and that much mass, you kind of expect to have probably just a little bit more up front. But a sheep that handles impressively and still handles it in terms of his skeleton. So the young man's doing a good job there with him to go ahead and lead the way and be our class winner in this particular lineup. The one that ends up here in second, a different kind, a different speed, longer bodied, taller shouldered, better heighted probably than the one that wins the class, but he comes to me in a form that just gets too flat in his body shape. He's not quite as bold in terms of his rib cage. He doesn't span the same kind of width of loin. It just maybe just doesn't balance quite as well either, just because of his length. He's just so long bodied and so tall. We want to modify that guy a little bit, and it really starts right there with his rib cage. The one that ends up in third, a little bit grayer heighted sheep here that handles hard and firm and lean. I want to see him balance better, work his spine down, and give me just a more attractive look there. A little longer fleeced one here that comes out next is one that has some length of body, a sheep that's probably just a little leaner, and from just a cutability standpoint has an advantage compared to the sheep that ends up in fifth. The one in fifth is just pushing a little bit more on him in terms of cover and fat. He is level topped. He is pretty correct in the way that he's made. Just like to see that one leaned up and a little more tone, a little bit more athletic there to the touch. A competitive class there. Congratulations.
Results from Class 7. In first place, Harlan Summers. Second place, Troy McWhorter. Third place, Jason Zion. Fourth place, Amelia Prouse. And fifth place, Cora LaVey. Coming into the ring now is our medium weight division. Exhibitors in this class are Amelia Summers, Quinn Whale, Addison McWhorter, Jamie Schaefer, Bernice Summers, Sadie McWhorter, Harlan Summers, and Troy McWhorter. We would just like to thank our premier sponsors, Mavericks Broadband, Core Electric Cooperative, as well as 40 Mile Feed for providing the shavings for our arena, and Zebra Lightings and Productions for the lighting for the arena.
medium weight division was pretty nice. We've got some individuals that come back out here and compete for these honors, and I think the lineup is good. A little bit different than our lightweight division. We get into some of these more mature sheep, and you can start to see that they've got just a little bit more age, a little more maturity, and probably even a little more mass in some cases than what we just came out of. And again, my approach is the same, just trying to find those that are the hardest ones to fault to go ahead and kind of get that particular honor here coming out of our middleweights. And just a few of the differences that I see as we kind of bring them back out and compare them a little bit. Young lady there on the far right probably has the most immature and most youthful sheep out here in this particular lineup. I like his build. I like his look. I think of the sheep that are out here, I don't call them light muscled by any means, but I think probably as you step in right from behind, maybe modify him just a little bit in his pins. The one that ends up coming out of our second class is just so smooth. He's got just a really nice look about him. I think one that just kind of looks like a show sheep out here in this lineup. Another one that I think just in terms of his flexibility, he's very good in that regard, and things proportion well as you study that sheep and his flank line and his lower body. Looks like he's still muscular. Is he the hardest muscled one out here? No, definitely not. We've got a few others that are probably a little harder touching and maybe just have a little bit more just real raw muscle. But is he light muscled? No, he's not light muscled. That's still a sheep that has plenty in that regard and still just gives you a really nice look there from the side. The one that comes out of our third class, really hard muscled, really big topped. I think a sheep that has just a lot of mass and power. When he comes back out, you watch him kind of walk out, maybe like to pull his flank line down a little bit, and as we talked in class, make him a little more youthful looking right up there through his front end. Young man's got a sheep that comes out of our fourth class there that just in terms of his muscle and his power and just his density, you know, he's good in that regard, and still one that I think is still built pretty good, pretty nice and pretty good right here from the side. You know, again, is he just quite as elite up through his front end? Maybe not, but that's still a pretty darn good sheep, and he comes back out here, and I think that one's still pretty competitive in this lineup. So I'm going to take one more look. Go ahead and put your hands together. Let's congratulate these kids on a nice middleweight division.
Our champion medium weight division is shown by Addison McWhorter. The award is sponsored by Chris and Ashley Carnahan. And our reserve champion medium division is Harlan Summers. Entering the ring now is Class 8. Lambs in this class range from 155 to 161 pounds. Exhibitors in this class include Carissa Stone, Jack Pyatt, Sadie McWhorter, Carly Bringhurst, and Addison McWhorter. Some of our other sponsors include Farmers State Bank, Wagner Cat, Serenity at Wolf Creek Ranch, GMT Exploration Company, Excel Energy, 21st Century Cypress Creek Renewables, Kraft Companies, and Independence.
Young lady that wins this class, she's sweating quite a bit. She's working pretty hard out here. Thankful it's not 100 degrees, and we've got a nice evening here to show some sheep, and she's been out here in this ring a lot, but I appreciate her efforts and her work and coming out and sticking with it. And showing sheep is hard. It's a difficult species to show. I think many of us probably understand and realize that. We get into these heavyweights, and we start to get into, I'm guessing, 150-ish kind of weight range in pounds and higher, and just trying to keep these sheep fresh enough, lean enough, where they still have the right kind of shape without getting too fat, and just kind of hold it all together. Young lady's got the one that I'm going to start with. I think probably does the best job of combining the most appropriate traits to go ahead and lead the way in this particular lineup. A sheep that has some muscle. I think one that, in relation to the one that ends up in second, is a little bolder there in his center body. He's dropped down with a little more flank. I think a sheep that probably just proportions a little better for me there from the side. He wants to get just a little short hipped. I maybe like to square up his rear hock just a little bit, but a solid sheep to go ahead and lead the way in this class. The one that ends up in second, I like how he runs uphill. He's tall shouldered. That's a lean sheep. He still handles pretty firm and handles pretty lean there to the touch. I appreciate those things about him. He just comes to me in a form that wants to flatten right there in his forerib, but in his center body. I don't read that one just quite as opened up and quite as expansive as what maybe we find in the class winner, but I like how he runs uphill. I like his levelness and his squareness. Same thing can be said for the one that ends up in the third spot. I think kind of mirrors some of the same traits as the one that ends up in second in terms of squareness of hip, and one that still has some elevation. I think a sheep that maybe just gets a little bit outclassed, if you will, as you study him, just in terms of his features. He's a little slicker legged. He's not quite as neat shouldered as maybe what we find in some others in this lineup. Just a solid sheep there that ends up in this third spot. The one that ends up in fourth, a sheep that has some width of loin. He's got some boldness there to his center body. He wants to get just a little deep in terms of his front end and his chest floor. Wants to get short right there out of his hip. I don't read that one to balance quite as well as what we find in some other sheep, although he does have some muscle. The one that rounds off our top five is long-bodied, fairly well made in terms of just his lines. This is a sheep that wants to get a little bit weak on those pasterns. He's a little long there in his shoulder blade. Just like to freshen him up and see him handle maybe just a little fresher today. Another good class here. Congratulations as we start to work through these heavies.
Results from Class 8. In first place, Addison McWhorter. Second place, Sadie McWhorter. Third place, Carly Bringhurst. Fourth place, Carissa Stone. And fifth place, Jack Pyatt. Entering the ring now is Class 9. Lambs in this class range from 167 to 177 pounds. Exhibitors in this class include Carly Bringhurst, Kinley Cornell, and Caden Pfeiffer.
Kind of getting into the big boys here, and I think the one that wins the class, I think, does so fairly handily. Just a nice sheep in relation to his size, big stout sheep that still handles it from a condition standpoint pretty well. He stayed relatively lean. I think one that gets out and you watch him kind of move, and in relation to his build and his skeleton and flexibility, sheep still handles himself well. Obviously, as you think about kind of bringing back these heavyweights, and I think in relation to just his freshness and youthfulness. Maybe we'd like to tweak on him a little bit there, but I think in relation to his weight, that's a nice sheep to go ahead and lead the way. The one that ends up in second does so over the one in third simply because this one's just more acceptable from a leanness standpoint, a trimness standpoint, just compositionally is a better sheep in that regard. Maybe like to change him a little bit in his top line, the way he's made right there in his hip and his rump structure. Wants to get just a little bit piecey for the young lady, but in terms of handling quality, that's where he beats the one that ends up in third. The one that ends up in third is definitely a sheep that's heavyweight. He's deep flanked. He's big bodied. Kind of get my hands on him, and just quite simply, he's just too fat. I want to see that one just leaner. I want to see that one trimmer and just more athletic to be more competitive in this particular lineup. Congratulations to those three.
Results from Class 9. In first place, Carly Bringhurst. Second place, Kinley Cornell. And third place, Caden Pfeiffer. Entering the ring now is Class 10. Lambs in this class range from 182 to 187 pounds. Exhibitors in this class include Carly Bringhurst and Caden Pfeiffer.
Young ladies, ULAM is the place to start for me in this particular class. I think in relation to the one that ends up in second, just quite a bit more genuine in terms of shape and just natural muscle. Get your hands on this one, really big in terms of her loin. A nice shape there to her twist and to her stifle. I think just a more muscular sheep, a more genuine sheep. If I'm going to change her a little bit, she wants to work up in her spine when she's out in motion. Like to see her just handle herself, just more relaxed, I guess, when she's out on the lead. But I think is the place to start. The one that ends up here in the second spot, just a little bit past this one's prime, I guess, for me, 180 plus pounds, just a little too soft to the touch. I need to see more just real muscle and a little less fat on this guy to be more competitive. Congratulations.
Results from Class 10. In first place, Carly Bringhurst. Second place, Caden Pfeiffer. Entering the ring now is our heavyweight division. Exhibitors in this division championship include Addison McWhorter, Sadie McWhorter, Carly Bringhurst, Kinley Cornell, and Carly Bringhurst and Caden Pfeiffer.
Heavyweight division out here. We bring these three class winners back out to evaluate for our champion in reserve honors, and I think we've got a few differences here between the sheep, and I guess as I study and evaluate these three within the lineup, it probably comes down to the two that are on my immediate right here that compete for the champion honors. I'll just kind of describe the differences that I see between the two sheep comparatively. The one that comes out of our first class in relation to the sheep that stands right behind him is probably just a little bit nicer heighted. He's a little better skinned, probably a little more closely shorn. I appreciate that about him. I think one that, still just in relation to having some general muscularity and having some back shape, that sheep does a pretty nice job of that. And when she's able to get him to just kind of push off of his hip and push off of his hind leg and get him to shift his weight forward, we get a little better look of that guy. The one that comes out of our second class, there's a sheep that just is genuine in terms of just his rib cage. He's genuine in terms of his power. I like him better than the one directly in front of him. As you study his hip and his hind leg set, I think this sheep is just built better right there in his hip. He's square right there in his hock. He's able to drive off of his hind leg because he sets it down just a little bit square compared to the sheep in front of him, and isn't quite as rolled out right there in his hock. And I think as you get your hands on him, still pretty in relation to his weight, still pretty lean from a compositional standpoint. So I think there's a few differences there between those two, and we'll take a look at a second here once we pick a champion. But those are really the two that I think are in contention for your heavyweight honors. The one that I like the best is going to be the young lady in the orange right here in front of me. Congratulations to her. We bring in that young lady in the green there for reserve, and she's got a sheep there that's lean and shapely and has some muscularity. Again, maybe just a little bit piecey in the way that one's made in his top line and right there in his hip structure. I'm going to go back to the young lady over here on my far right to end up reserve in this division. Congratulations.
Our champion heavyweight lamb is shown by Carly Bringhurst. That award is sponsored by Teeman Cattle, Aaron and Jamie Teeman. Entering the ring is our grand champion Drive. Exhibitors include Addison McWhorter, Bernice Summers, and Carly Bringhurst.
Well, let's go ahead and congratulate the youngsters who have kind of made it out here to this point in the evening. Been able to judge in Colorado a few times, and my expectations when I come out and judge are always pretty high. I just kind of have it in my mind that I'm going to see good livestock. I know there's a lot of good stock people within this state, and your kids do an awesome job of getting them shown and presented. And although this is my first time coming to this county, I would say it's certainly no different than some of the others that I've been to in terms of just the competitiveness and the nature about the kids, and just probably the breeders that are behind some of these sheep. We've got some high quality livestock and high quality animals that I would say, there's going to be obviously only two of them here that kind of get a banner or get a handshake, but there's others that may get left that other county fairs throughout the state or really throughout the country would probably be awfully tough to beat. And so I say that as a compliment to the people that are bringing good stock out here, and to the breeders that are getting them raised, and the young people that are doing just a nice job of getting them shown. And I think it is very competitive. I guess my approach when I come down to kind of that final drive is to just make sure that I feel good about my decision, that I'm going to use the one that I think is going to be the highest quality piece of livestock that I'm able to see. And I think there's differences though, and what makes it challenging is that we got such a big weight spread, right, between our light, mediums, and heavy. And I know some people are pretty adamant about a particular weight that an animal has to be, and I don't know that I am in the same boat. I just like good livestock, and if they're 120 or 160 or somewhere in between, if I feel like they're the best one, I just don't really have an issue with going ahead and using them. But I think we do, though, have differences in maturity as you look at the sheep out here. And so you can see that. You can see some of the differences in the livestock and the way that maybe I've tried to describe them to you here this evening. I think the decision is interesting. I think it's close, and I think it's close beyond more than two animals. I think there's really four sheep out here that really all are pretty darn good. And just some of the differences, I guess, that I see in this particular lineup. When we look at the lightweight, he's 119 pounds, I guess is what the young lady told me, is just one of the more cool and kind of unique sheep that we have out here in this lineup. I'd say one for as green and as skinny as he still is. I think he probably handles as good as anything out here in this championship lineup. That's a sheep that has a lot of future to him, and I guess the question mark, not only for myself but maybe others, is there just enough of him? Does he weigh enough? Is he just mature enough to go ahead and pull the trigger and use that sheep to win? But I think that is a high quality animal, and I like a lot of things about him. You look at our middleweight sheep, and this is one that from the side, just in terms of smoothness, boy, that guy is so smooth, and just the way that he's built and put together, and just his hip and his hind leg is really assembled incredibly well. His flank line is right and good, and I think one that just really looks the part out here as well, but for different reasons. When I put my hands on him compared to the three that are out here in the lineup, he's probably, again, from a comparative sense, maybe just not quite as firm to the touch. He's just a little bit softer, and when I get my hands on that guy, maybe like to just harden him up and just shape him up a little bit more, which is interesting because the side view, his lower rear end shape is pretty good, but you get your hands right up on top of him, I maybe like to see him just a shot more expressive and maybe just a bit leaner. We've got our heavyweight here that in relation to his weight handles it really well, and nothing to take away from that particular sheep because that's a really nice heavyweight sheep that comes out and competes in this particular lineup. We've got some reserves that I think are awfully good as well, and maybe a different day we maybe switch some of those around, and under a different judge maybe those get switched a little bit too. So I think just quality livestock here all the way through. Do we have a perfect one to maybe choose? No, but that's okay. There's a lot of really good parts and really good pieces, and then on top of that, good showmen that get them presented. So it's a competitive decision for me, but I hope that you can congratulate whoever wins here, be happy for them, and just enjoy part of the competition of a county fair. And it's the I've got a 9 and a 10-year-old at home, and this is the week that they look forward to the most, is the county fair week. And I know it's, you can be negative about county fairs, but to be quite honest with you, they love it. It's an absolute blast. It's the social part of it they get to show, and it's probably one of those only experiences that we get. We don't get those at jackpot shows. We don't get those at the state fair, where we get to spend some time with some of our other show families and just try to enjoy what we get to do. And so I think county fairs are great. I think it's important to show at them. I think it's important for breeders to have sheep to do well at county fairs, and I hope you take some pride in your county fair. You guys are doing a really nice job. I appreciate the opportunity to come out and spend some time out here in your state and in your town and in your county, and I hope that you guys have an enjoyable rest of the fair. Give the kids one more nice round of applause here. We'll go get you a champion in reserve.
Your grand champion market lamb is shown by Bernice Summers. And we would just like to thank our buckle sponsor, which is SSL Choice LLC, Fence and Retaining Wall, Matt Summers.
We bring in our reserve lightweight sheep, and kind of mentioned coming out of that particular division how good that I thought it was, and this one comes into the lineup, and I think again offers a lot of quality. He's not the same as that champion lightweight. He's probably a little bit more similar to the other sheep that we have in the lineup, just in terms of just kind of squareness and power and build, and that's a sheep that I think is still awfully good, really in his own right, and the reason kind of why he got beat in that particular division, in my opinion, was the other one was just a little more elite looking right up there through his front end. We get him out here into this lineup again, and another one here, you get your hands on him, and boy, he touches really good and is really square. A little bit of a different mold, again, compared to that champion, but the rest of them are all just a little bit different in relation to him as well. So I think that one's still very, very competitive when you get him out here, and the young lady's doing an excellent job. So one more nice round of applause. I'll go shake the hand here of your reserve.
Your reserve grand champion market lamb is shown by Amelia Summers. And we would just like to thank our buckle sponsor for our reserve grand champion market lamb, which is the Kirchhoff family.